Okay, so here we're looking at a question. It's going to ask us if it's an observational study or an experiment. And then can we conclude from the study that something causes something? All right, let's read the question. The study took a random sample of adults and asked them about their bedtime habits. By the questioning, the large group was broken into two smaller groups, those who regularly drink tea before bedtime and those who did not. The data showed that people who drank a cup of tea before bedtime were more likely to go to sleep earlier than those who didn't drink tea. So is this an observational study or an experiment? Okay, so the difference is observational no, well, we do not do anything to the two groups or the three groups or whatever, comma, we only observe, what's called observational. Whereas experiment, in an experiment, we do something different. Well, we do, yeah, something different to one group, and sometimes two groups, but good enough. We do something different to one group. We experiment on them. We do something different. Okay, and here's the bottom line. Observational, well, here, let me just write it up by observational cannot determine causation. Cannot, if you do observational. Whereas experimental can determine causation. An experiment can determine causation. All right, let's read it. So, so you really want to strive to understand this and not just look for certain keywords, because it's not going to be that simple. Real life is not that simple, and the exam will not be that simple. You have to really understand the difference. So, what is the difference? A study. Let's see what they did here. They, in particular, on this question, two groups: those who regularly drank tea before bedtime, and those who did not. Now, is that something they did on their own or we did to them? That's something they did on their own. That's observation. That's observational. Because we didn't come in and do something to them. We just observed what their regular patterns already were. Right? Broken, you might think, well, yeah, we broke them into two groups. Well, they broke themselves into two groups, really. But those who regularly drank tea before bedtime, that was their regular pattern. We didn't make them do anything different or direct them to do anything different. They were people who already regularly drank tea before bedtime. And the other group was those who did not. That's just what they did on their own. So that means it's only observational. We're just looking at what they're doing. We're not changing anything about them. And thus, can we conclude that, and it said, the data showed that people who drank a cup of tea before bedtime were more likely to go to sleep earlier. Okay, so can we conclude that drinking tea causes earlier bedtime? No. You think, well, yeah, right here. Those who drank tea before bed went to bed earlier. You cannot say causation. Why not? Because we didn't do an experiment, meaning the people who on their own regularly drink tea before bedtime, they might just be older people who like to go to bed earlier anyway. And they happen to drink tea and they happen to go to bed earlier. Maybe they're only going to bed earlier because that's just a pattern, and it's a pattern, they drink tea and they go to bed early. I mean, we don't know. It just, you can't say it causes. Now you might, but to help, let me come down to this one and show you the difference. Now on this one, a study took a group of adults and randomly divided them into two groups. One group was told, we're doing something to them, see the difference? To drink tea every night, right? They weren't already tea drinkers on their own, right? See the difference? Told to drink tea every night for a week. The other group was told not to drink tea. And researchers then compared when each group fell asleep. This is an experiment. Why? Because we did something different. We did something different to one group. We told one group to drink tea, the other not. Right? And so can we conclude that in this case, that drinking tea causes earlier bedtime? Yes, for sure. We can, because it's an experiment, meaning these are just two random groups, right? So it says if we randomly divided them into two groups. And one group was told to drink tea, the other was told not to. So the two groups are random. You'll have old people, young people, fit people, out of shape people, sick people, well people, whatever you get. They're just totally randomly mixed groups. There's nothing different about the two groups except one group was told to drink tea, the other group was told not to. So then if the tea drinkers went to bed earlier, the only difference between them is they drink tea. So yes, we can determine that the tea drinking is causing it in this case. Whereas in the previous one, you might think, well, yeah, that's the case in the other one. No, in the other one up here, the tea drinkers drank tea on their own. Right? On the first question, my having trouble getting my iPad to respond here. Okay. There we go. All right. So whereas in the first case, right, these people drank tea on their own. So it could just be their habit of drinking tea and going to bed early. The tea doesn't necessarily cause it. That's the difference. Okay. Let's try another one. A study randomly assigned volunteers to one or two groups. And you think, oh, randomly, that's it. Don't go by buzzwords. Randomly doesn't decide it. It's not enough. Go by concepts. Don't try to answer these questions by looking for random buzzwords. You've got to understand the concepts. I'm going to use the buzzwords all different ways. One group was directed to use social media sites as they usually do. One group was blocked from social media sites. The researchers looked at which group tended to be happy. Is this observational? Can we conclude it causes people to be happy? This is an experiment. How do we know? Because they're directed and blocked. We did something different. That's called an experiment. Something different to the two groups, or however you want to say it, one group, two groups, whatever. We did different things to the two groups. So can we conclude that it causes? Yes, right? Because they're just two random groups. And so again, I know you're probably thinking, oh, randoms, it's just random. That's all. If I see the word random, it's experiment. No, don't do that. That's not true. Look at the next one. Let me show you. It's not about whether it says random or not. It's whether we did something to them or not. Look at the next one. Random sample of people. Examine their social media habits. Each person was broken into three groups according to their regular pattern, classified as either a light, moderate, or heavy social media user. Which groups tended to be happier? Is this observational experiment? This is observational. Now, why? Because we only observed. We didn't do anything to them. Yeah, well, they're different though. Yeah, they're different. Light, moderate, or heavy social media user, but we just examined their behavior. Even though we grabbed a group of random people, we only examined. We didn't direct their behavior. So that's observational, and thus we cannot conclude causation. Now, in the next one, a group of 1,000 people are randomly selected, And 1,000 people broken into two groups. Group 1, those who regularly have a higher sugar diet. Group 2 are those who regularly have a lower sugar diet. It's found that those who consume more sugar on average have higher blood pressure. Observational. Again, we did not do anything to them, right? They regularly have a higher sugar diet on their own, right? We did nothing to them, to the groups. We just observed what they're already doing. So no, we cannot conclude causation. If there's some kind of thing, we have it. But those who have more sugar have higher blood pressure. That proves it. No, it does not. Because the problem with that is these are people who on their own have a higher sugar diet. So there can be a lot of things different about them. That's just a different kind of person who on their own chooses to have a higher sugar diet. They might also just be a person who doesn't exercise, just doesn't care about their health in lots of different ways. And the higher sugar diet is just one sign of that. And really, maybe the sugar diet's not causing any problem, but it's because they don't work out. Who knows? The fact is, because they are people who on their own regularly have a high sugar diet, that might mean they generally are not as healthy and don't work out and don't sleep well. And those are the things that are actually causing it, not the sugar diet at all. Problem is, it's just observational. We just don't know. Whereas down here, let's look at this one now. 500 people randomly broken into two groups. One group implementing. They're doing something, a low sugar diet for 6 months. The other group having a high sugar diet for 6 months. They're doing something, right? They're broken into two groups, and we're having them implement. Implement is, so we're doing something. This is an experiment. We're doing something. We didn't just grab people who already have a high or low sugar diet and just observed what they're doing. We gave them a low sugar diet, and the other group had we gave them a high sugar diet, right? So yes, if then at the end of 6 months, if there's a difference in blood pressure, yes, we can conclude that it's causing, because the only difference between those two groups, they're just two random groups. The only difference in those groups is we caused one to have a low sugar diet and caused the other to have a high sugar diet. See the difference? Whereas the last question was they were already choosing low sugar diet or high sugar diet on their own, which might mean a lot of other things about them that could be causing high blood pressure other than the sugar. Whereas if you just grab two random groups and force one group to do low sugar and the other to high sugar, and then there's a high blood pressure difference, their only difference is the sugar. So the sugar, yes, has got to be causing it. So you got to be careful. It's all about an experiment is something in which we do something to them, and then you can figure out causation in those cases. There we go.